Thanks for letting me know. Okay.
You.
No, you're good. Okay, so while I'm doing this, David, if you don't mind going ahead and start roll call.
Of course. Alrighty. Senator Alyssa. Alyssa. Senator Casey.
Here. I'm here. Sorry.
Perfect. Senator Christopher. Okay, that's me. Senator Grant's here. Senator Hector.
Here.
Senator Jermaine, JT.
I'm here.
Senator Jordan.
Here.
Senator Kelsey.
She's not here today.
Okay. Senator Melissa.
Here.
Senator Navia.
Here.
Senator Paola. Senator Paola. Okay. Senator Ryan.
Here.
Senator Stefania.
Here.
Senator Tara.
Oh, thank you.
Senator Tara. Okay. Senator Maria.
Here.
Senator Sophia.
Here.
Senator Melissa.
Here.
Senator Victoria.
Here. Also, I have a question. Why is the box from October 12th blank?
Because you just were appointed. Well, you said the blocks for October 12th.
Yeah.
Your
That's
office
for
hours,
September.
you haven't done them yet for this week.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm waiting. So attendance is, so don't worry about this. Unless you do see like some errors on here, let me know. But that's just because you haven't done your office hours for this week.
Coolness. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and lastly, Senator Bushra.
Here.
Perfect. So I'm missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 senators. Okay.
You said 5 senators?
Yeah. Alyssa, Chris, Kelsey, Paola, and Tara.
So, okay. So 5 out of, we're at 15, correct? That's what you said. Okay, I'm just making sure we're meeting quorum. 20 times 0.66. Okay, yeah, we're at quorum. All right. So first item that we have on the agenda, Krista, I've already given you presenter rights, so you can go ahead and start with your last presentation that you have for us this week.
All right, give me a second here to, there we go.
You have control, right?
All right, I do. Can you see, I'm showing you the wrong slide though. Hope everybody's doing all right. Let's see, let's go that and see if that works. All right. That didn't do anything, did it?
No, it's just black.
Ugh. Screen. One. There we go. I think that did it. All right. Can y'all see the slides? Yes. Okay, cool. Okay, well, today is our last venture into Robert's Rules, and after this, you'll be experts. So I'm actually going to skip this part. Here we go. All right, so today we're going to talk about voting, vote counts, types of voting, things like that. So first off, there are several types of voting mechanisms. And these are the 4 that I've listed here are the 4 most common types for SGA. And I'm going to walk through each of those. So I've combined the first two because they're very, very similar, and that's voice vote or show of hands vote. So these are both uncounted and therefore the fastest. So when you're in person, Cam would, this doesn't really work that well virtually, but when you someday are together in person, Cam would usually ask for this first because again, it's fast. So he'd say, this is when he goes, everybody for say aye, everybody against say nay. And many times you can actually tell just by voices how many ayes and nays there are if something is, you know, which one has more than the other. But sometimes if you can't tell, hold on a second, why can't this is not working. If you can't tell, then there we go. So if you can't tell just by the ayes and nays voice-wise, or if somebody asks for it via motion, then he could transition into asking for a show of hands, whereby visually, you know, everybody raise your hand aye, raise your hand nay. So visually, by a show of hands, he can see whether more hands are raised for the aye or for the nay. But sometimes even that's not clear. So then, if you can't tell by raising hands, then you could go into the next type, which is a counted vote. So this is used when the speaker can't visually see whether a vote achieved a majority or a 2/3 vote just by looking at hands. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. So Cam may just move into this type of vote automatically, but just like the other types, a senator could also call for this type of vote. They could basically make a motion for a counted vote if they think the uncounted vote before was too close to call. So this kind of motion doesn't need a second and isn't debatable. You basically just make your motion, you know, you raise your hand, you get recognized, and you say I move for division of the assembly, and you move right into just count it. Cam would just move into starting to count. All right, next up is the roll call vote. So a roll call means everybody's name's being called and you're having to say aye or nay for the record, because it goes on record and this goes on the web page. Now, in the virtual sense, this is being done, I think, by the voting forms that Cam sets up for each meeting. This is obviously the most time consuming, so you know you may not want to do roll call votes more than you have to, but minimally you have to do it for the passage of legislation. So not the amendments, not the things that happen inside the legislation, the motions then, but for the legislation as a whole, when you're ready to vote on it, you actually do have to do a roll call vote for that. All right. Next up, let's talk about, you know, in a previous session, I mentioned that there's a shortcut for that whole motion process. You know, the motion process being, you know, raise your hand, get recognized, go through debate, then vote. There is a shortcut for that. And Cam's already been using it. Y'all have been using it whether you realize it or not. And it's called unanimous or general consent. So you can use this, or you should use this, to speed up the process. So when there are motions of routine business or of little importance, again, because bylaws say that you have to do roll call votes for legislation, you cannot use unanimous consent on a final vote of a piece of legislation. So the process here works like this. So any senator, you raise your hand, you get recognized by Cam, you then make the motion. So, you know, move to vote by unanimous consent. And then instead of debating, or somebody has to second that. And then instead of debating that motion, Cam would just say, if there are no objections, the motion will be adopted. Okay. Or again, actually, sorry, I screwed that up. So on just any motion that's happening, you know, somebody raises their hand, get recognized. So instead of going to debate, somebody then moves, or either Cam can do it, or some senator can move to vote by unanimous consent. And so Cam will say on his own, or because senator asks him to, if there are no objections, the motion will be adopted. So if you're a senator and you want to make that motion to vote by unanimous consent, you do it sometime after the person seconds the original motion. So say somebody makes a motion to amend a resolution and it gets seconded. Right then is when you'd pop in and say, raise your hand, Cam recognizes you, and you say, move to vote by unanimous consent. And then it skips all the debate and the voting. Okay. So after Cam says, if there are no objections, the motion will be adopted, he has to pause there, wait a few seconds, make sure everybody has a chance to object. If nobody objects, then he says, hearing no objections or hearing none, the motion's adopted. And again, that means you've skipped debate, you've skipped the actual voting, vote counts on that. Okay. But if even one senator objects, when Cam asks for it, then the current motion continues through that regular full motion process. So debate, votes, all. Okay. So think about this. A motion for unanimous consent doesn't actually need a second, as the objection is what prevents further consideration of that motion. Okay. And a vote of unanimous consent does not necessarily mean that everybody agrees on the motion. So let's say a motion to amend. If somebody asks for to move to vote by unanimous consent, that doesn't necessarily mean you like that motion, that amendment motion. Okay, it just means there's a high chance that it's going to pass if it goes through debate and if it goes through voting. You're just very cognizant that it's probably going to pass, and why waste everybody's time debating, going through that whole process of voting. That you accept the fact that it's going to pass, and so you don't object necessarily. But on the other hand, just because you object to a vote for unanimous consent doesn't necessarily mean you're against the original motion, but rather that you think that particular motion should go through the process of debate and voting. Okay, any questions about anything so far? All right, moving along. So now let's talk about vote or abstentions, because I know this has come up before and starting to already see this happening. So I would challenge you, and I think Robert of Robert's Rules would challenge you not to abstain except in certain situations. And that's because, number one, each of you has been elected or selected to represent your constituency, to be their voice. And you can't be their voice if you're constantly abstaining, which basically means you're not giving your opinion on a motion. It is your duty to express your opinion via vote of aye or nay, either for or against a motion. And again, you can't do that if you're not voting, either aye or nay. If you abstain, you're really not technically voting. So when should you abstain? So I've come up with a few situations that it is a good idea, but not required to abstain. So let's just say you have a direct personal interest in the motion at hand. For example, let's say you're the president or you're an officer of a student organization, and that organization has appealed a vote of the Eagles Nest Committee to give them money, okay? And the appeal comes before Senate. If you are an officer of that organization that's coming up for appeal, it's probably a good idea to abstain because you have a direct personal interest in that motion. And it's kind of the ethical thing to do, is not to vote on it and to instead abstain. Another example of when it's a good idea to abstain is, and this has happened already, is let's just say you came in late to a meeting and you missed all the debate for an appointee or a piece of legislation, and the Senate's about to vote and you missed everything. You really have no idea what's going on. That is a good time to abstain because you really can't make an educated decision or make an educated opinion on that piece of legislation or that appointee. Okay, so while an abstention means you're not technically giving your opinion on that motion, what ends up happening is it in essence acts as a vote against the motion. So it's basically a no vote. And that's because abstentions are removed from the total vote count when determining if a motion reaches either a majority or a 2/3 vote. So for example, I wrote this up here on the PowerPoint. For example, if you've got 25 senators present at a meeting, a majority to pass that motion is 13, right? So if the vote count then becomes 12 for, 12 against, and 1 abstention, that abstention has prevented the motion from having the ability to pass because you haven't hit 13. So that means that abstention is basically counting as a no vote, and therefore the motion fails. And that's another reason, again, why you want to try to vote whenever you can, because you're basically saying no. All right, let me know if y'all have questions. Next up is about vote counts. So each motion that is made, or piece of legislation or action, whatever y'all are doing, requires a specific vote count. And it's either a majority vote or a 2/3 vote. And this is typically either stated in the SGA Constitution or bylaws for SGA specific things, or it's in Robert's rules for procedural type of things. Okay, so majority, pretty self-explanatory, and it is required a majority of the time. So that's more often the vote count you're going to need to pass something. So it is defined as basically more than half of senators saying aye. Again, once you subtract the abstentions, you have to have more than half of the senators present saying aye or voting for something. Okay, 2/3 is a little more complicated though. So this is the 2/3 is a vote count required when you're taking people's rights away or changing people's rights, or you're trying to change something that's already handled. So for example, if you want to make a change in a motion that was already voted on before, and you want to change up how you handled that original motion, a 2/3 vote is required to bring it back up and rehandle it. Okay, so an example of taking rights away. So if you ever move to vote, that means you're moving to cut off debate, and that affects people's rights, and that's a 2/3 vote. If you move, we talked about limiting or extending debate from 2 times to more or to less, or the 10 minutes for more or less, or debate overall on a motion, the amount of time spent on it, that affects people's rights because minimally they have those rights. So if you adjust anybody's rights or try to, it's a 2/3 vote to do so. Other examples of motions that require 2/3 vote are typically set in bylaws. So if you want to amend the bylaws, that's a 2/3 vote. All presidential appointments are a 2/3 a vote. And 2/3 vote, it's kind of hard to calculate sometimes, but the easiest way to think about it is it's defined as having twice as many yes votes as no votes. Again, once you take out abstentions. Okay, and I'm going to show you some examples of that in a second. All right, the last part that I want to bring up is this concept that you see in bylaws and constitution of simple versus absolute. So sometimes you'll see a simple majority vote, sometimes you'll see an absolute majority vote, sometimes you'll see a simple 2/3 vote, sometimes you'll see an absolute 2/3 vote. And what does that mean? So again, first of all, this assumes that you all have quorum, basically means you have enough senators present at the time of voting, okay? So a simple vote means that's a vote count based on those present at the meeting, okay? So the example here is, for a simple, if something requires a simple 2/3 majority vote, if there are 20 senators present, you've got to have at least 14 yes votes to pass it. So 2/3 times 20 is 13.3, but you can't have 0.3 of a person. Round it up. So 2/3, a simple 2/3 majority vote, to pass is 14 yes votes. Okay. An absolute vote, however, is based on all voting members, even if they're not present. So the example there is, if you need an absolute 2/3 majority and there are 30 seated senators, even if only 20 are present, that means you need at least 20 yes votes to pass it by an absolute 2/3. So that means every single senator present in that meeting right then has to say yes for that vote, for that motion to pass, because you're looking at the total number of seated senators, not the total number of senators present in the meeting right that second. Okay, so that's the difference between simple and absolute. So that's pretty much it. What kind of questions do y'all have? Clear as mud?
This would definitely, if anybody has any questions, to be the time to ask Krista any sort of questions about all 4 of her presentations. Any other?
Okay, well, hopefully you've retained at least some of it, but again, the idea is, as long as you're consistent in what you do and fair to everybody, life will go on. Robert's rules doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to know a little bit to be dangerous. And we'll, if you ever need help, I mean, I'm not an expert either, but I can assist as best I can.
Okay. Thank you so much, Krista.
All right, thanks, y'all.
All right. Updates. Okay. So next thing we have on the agenda is our meeting minutes from last Wednesday. So I did send these in the email. Were there any objections to the meeting minutes? Okay, well, if there's no objections, these minutes have been approved, so we'll go ahead and get these on the website. All right, okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move forward to college reports. We didn't have any new business for this meeting, but I did want to let you all know. So I did send a message in the Teams right about an hour before our meeting, just letting you all know to make sure. So how we'll do this is college reports, you will pick a main contact for your college. So I know some colleges have just one senator, and then some may have like 2 to maybe 5 senators. So pick your main contact. So of course, I would hope that you guys have, started contacting one another to speak about legislation and everything else. But for college report, I'll just go down the list. And then if you don't have anything to report, let me know you don't have anything to report. But if you do, go ahead and report whatever it is that you need to report to update us on exactly what's going on. And so we'll do the same thing for committee reports. I'll allow you guys to speak instead of emailing me, just so, we can have more engagement within the meeting. And, I'm just not the only person just talking for the meetings. Okay, so if you did email me your report, I know Tams did, so Nabia, she did send me her report. Nabia, if you don't mind, just go ahead and just reiterating it once we get to Tams. But I will just go down the list, and then for David's sake, he's gonna just try to get a synopsis of exactly your report as well. Was there anything to report for the College of Business?
Not on my end, but I don't know about the other senator.
No, me either.
Okay, sounds good. So just also to let you guys know, I will start introductions with your deans if you guys haven't already started talking to your deans yet. So just so you know, when you guys get an email and you guys are in a thread with your college dean, that's just so you guys can talk with your college dean about exactly some things that you've been seeing on campus and are within your college that you have concerns about. Okay, was there anything to report for the College of Engineering? I believe we have representation.
Nothing from my end, and I haven't been in touch with any of the other senators, so I'm not sure.
So as of right now, Alyssa is your other contact, but Alyssa will probably be stepping down. So you will be the one sole senator for the College of Engineering until we do get some more appointees. And so I am going to talk to you guys a little bit about some ideas that I've been coming up with to increase our numbers within Senate and possibly engagement for how many applications we do get through. Because I have pending ones, but I'm trying to, of course, I haven't had anyone submit an application in a while. Okay. Oops, I don't know what happened. My screen went blank. Okay, where's my, agenda, okay. College of Health and Public Service, was there anything to report?
There's nothing on my.
Oh, yeah, nothing for me.
No.
Yeah. Okay. All right. College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences.
Nothing new to report.
Okay. College of Music. Is Sophia here?
She's having some technical issues.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna come back to you in a minute, Sophia, just so you can figure out your technical issues. Okay, College of Science.
There's nothing on my end, but I think we're still gonna try to think of issues that we could discuss that you said we could turn in Friday. Is that what you said in your message?
Yes, so you can, you can go ahead and update me if you do have anything you want to report for the week, and then I'll send it in an email. And David also, he'll have it in the minutes for next meeting too. But if
Okay.
you do end up having something, like if Tara, I know Tara's not here, so if Tara has something that she would like to report, then she can let us know.
Okay.
But I know I had got an update on her about you've been working together on legislate or, interest in legislation. So I had already talked to her a little bit about that.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Honors College.
Okay, yes, I did have something to report. So I've been working on a bill with Student Affairs and Department Orientation for a cultural competency bill. I also had a meeting with the SGA Inclusion Director, Tommy, and me and him have been working on the bill. He's also a co-sponsor on it. So we've been working on that, trying to get that prepared for the upcoming week. And I also have some other bills that I have done, or another bill that I have been working up on that should be hopefully coming up soon within the next week as well. So yes, that's it for honors. And also I'll be meeting with my dean soon already. I've already reached out to my dean because I have my advising appointment. So I reached out to her last week. So I should be meeting with her soon.
Okay, so you don't need me to connect you guys.
I'm good.
Okay, all right. And yeah, let me know if you don't need me to connect you with your dean, if you already, are familiar with your dean, and then I won't do it. But just to go ahead and get the conversation started. Okay, Tams, Navia, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
So in the email, I sent you a little bit of what we did so far throughout the year. As of right now, we're still debating whether or not McConnell will be virtual or not. Depending on that, we'll see what we can get done regarding the Wi-Fi cutoffs in our hall. But
to update you on our conversation during my one-on-one, so I spoke with our advisor, and so I've came across the legislation. Now I'm gonna find out if there was any sort of follow-up to that legislation, but I did come across it though.
okay, can you send it to me?
Yeah, I can send it to you. I'll get it to you.
Okay.
Let me write that down. Okay, email. And College of Music, Sophie, are you able to, did you get your technical difficulties figured out?
No, I'm having to restart my computer, so I'm on my phone, but I can do it on my phone.
Okay.
Currently, I am working on drafting my email to Dean Richmond about creating an online portal for accompanimists. It was in my platform, so I'm still working on drafting that up before I email him. I think I'm going to talk more about it with you on in our one-on-one, but that's about all I'm working on right now.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, thank you guys. So, well, like I said last week, so these will be bi-weekly. So we'll do these again. Well, actually, an update, getting ahead of myself, but then announcement at the bottom for the Senate bonding week. So it won't be next week, it'll be the week after. So we will not do college reports until the 4th, and then we'll be back on schedule, just to let you guys know. So we'll be back on schedule for our next college reports on the 4th of November. Okay, so was there anything else that anyone missed or had anything else they wanted to say within their reports? All right, if not, okay, so we'll go ahead and go forward. So speaker announcements. So for office hours, so if you have not selected your office hours, please go ahead and select your office hours. I believe I'm missing a couple senators on my list. So when I was looking at attendance that we did have for office hours, so Peyton is the one who's spearheading, and that's the reason why I'm wondering if there are some people who are missing, because I wasn't counting 20, or not 20, I wasn't counting 19 on my end. So if you have not, and I did email out yesterday, or not yesterday, on Monday, the office hours. So I believe I'm missing Melissa. I do need your office hours. I haven't gotten a email from you on the office hours that you have. Melissa, and then that was it that I have on this list. So Melissa, can you just email me your office hours during the week, so then we can go ahead and get you set up for your link. All right, so that was it for office hours. So for one-on-ones, so updates. So I have been having one-on-ones with you all, and they've actually been going pretty well. I've been getting some pretty good feedback as far as some things that we as a Senate, we could probably work on as far as just like within learning team dynamics and other things. And so that's the main reason why we want to have a set aside day just for Senate, just to go ahead and kind of do some bonding and also do some legislation workshop. So that is something that's in development. So once, like I said, once I get everything in order of exactly what we'll have, I'll have like a little agenda, just a breakdown of everything we'll be doing, and then I'll also provide you guys with the Zoom link for that meeting or for that workshop day, and then yeah. So that's pretty much it for that side of things. What else within one-on-ones? I've been hearing some really good ideas within legislation. I just want to encourage you guys to continue to you utilize your other senators as well as assess the students within your college and ask any kind of questions. Because I mean, I know you guys are fully capable and you guys have some really good ideas. And a lot of things that are going on within our nation, our state, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of ideas that we can put together and definitely implement within this campus. And so just make sure that you guys are at least trying to think about some things that you can put in works, whether it being a resolution or a bill. Definitely just want to continue to encourage you guys to focus externally within the outside of the organization, within legislation, just so we can continue to focus on students and continue to voice our concerns or voice issues about students. Yes, Grant.
Okay, so I know each year we're supposed to get, or like each semester, we're at least supposed to pass a minimum of one bill, correct?
Yes.
If we co-sign a bill, or do we need to have it just ours and ours alone?
Yeah, so I mean, it's like a standing rule. I don't recall reading through bylaws exactly if it's like, it's just a standing rule that vice presidents hold accountable for senators. But co-signing a legislation, yes, it would count. Obviously, I understand this is our first year being online and things are just so weird and differently. I'm not like sitting up here like upset that there's no legislation. Obviously, I would assume that legislation would be less. But I want to encourage you guys to continue to think outside the box and continue to try to think about what are some issues that students are facing? What are some issues that maybe students within your college are facing to put together a piece of legislation? I think the best thing to do is utilizing your senators, the ones in your college and other senators as well, to put together your minds. Because like I said, like in one-on-ones, like I've heard some really good ideas and things that senators want to do. And so just continuing that, just to have that momentum, because I do understand that it's like, there's a lack of momentum with a lot of things. And so just trying to have some sort of momentum to go ahead and continue to push legislation.
And just to real quick, if we do have any legislation, we always send it to you for approval, or do you just go, or is there a rule that says that you just put it on the Senate floor for debate or discussion?
So yeah, legislation is always submitted through me. Krista and I, we met and we discussed that, the Friday is a soft deadline, Thursday, Friday is a soft deadline, because we just want to provide any sort of feedback because a lot of senators are pretty new. This is their first session. So I want to be able to provide any sort of feedback that can possibly beef your legislation up any more than it can be. Or if it's a simple thing, maybe you missed a lettering or a numbering of something. And so pretty much it's just so once it gets to the floor that senators aren't, well, hey, I noticed this and this. Because the one thing is once it is passed, I mean, we have to then get it amended and go through that whole process again. And so that's like a bite in the butt. So that's the reason why we do ask for that. But the deadline is a reoccurring deadline. It's always Sunday at 11:59 p.m. And so I haven't had anybody who's like submitted legislation afterwards.
Okay, and then just real quick, like when you send us back the comments and stuff like that, and we fix them and then send them to you, is that we have to wait for like another week to put the legislation on there, or can it just be automatically, oh, we fixed it, okay, let's agenda?
No, so in that place, if you were to make your adjustments to the legislation, then well, if you were to submit it by the Sunday, then I would have it on the agenda. But if it's not by the Sunday, then at that point, I don't want to put it on the agenda because there's errors still within the legislation. If I do receive it, then, I mean, it's really, I mean, solely up to me if I would like to put it on the agenda or just wait until the next meeting to actually add it on the agenda. But that's the reason why we ask for that leeway in between the days.
I was just saying, like, when you send us back, say we submit it on the Sunday, you make your comments, you get it back to us on Monday or Tuesday or whatever. You're usually pretty good on sending them back to us with rapid response. But I'm saying when we can fix this, we want to get the agenda on there as obvious, the piece of legislation obviously on there as quick as possible for the agenda to be brought before the Senate. So in that case, would that happen?
No, it would just hold off until the next meeting.
Okay.
Yes, so we'll just hold it off until the next meeting, just to be clear for the future as well. It'll just be held off until the next meeting. Okay. So that was it that I had about one-on-ones. Are there any concerns, questions about anything right now? Okay. So right now we're at officer reports. So were there any questions for officers?
I had a question, Cameron.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, JT. Was it JT?
That was me.
Okay, yeah, you go ahead.
Hey, I just had a quick question. My question was for DT. I wasn't sure necessarily if we didn't have enough people who apply for committees or not, but I was trying to figure out in the departmental committees, a lot of the committees just exec, and I'm not sure if he didn't have people apply or he didn't reach out to senators to see if they wanted to be on those committees. But I was just wondering from him, was that the case? Or was it meant, or did you guys design it this year for exec to be heavily on the departmental committees?
So I'm gonna pull up the applications right now, but I'm pretty for sure that generally 90 applications, I know DT talked about this, the 90 applications that SGA received, or I would say 50 plus, I wanna say it was down to like 30, if that. I'm gonna pull it up for you to go ahead and give you the answer right now. But, so what committees exactly, you said departmental, correct?
Yes, I'm talking about departmental committees,
Okay.
yes. So if you specifically let me be more specific. If you look at Student Service Fee Committee, last year, the committee was very diverse. So it wasn't just SGA people, it was kind of like many different students on campus, but this year it's like 4 or 5 people from exec. And that
it was only exec last year as well. I was the only other person that was outside of exec. I mean, the committee itself is diverse, but like from what Yoleon chose, I was the only other person who was outside of exec.
What about? Oh, okay, so I thought Brooke and Louise weren't a part of SGA. Well, Brooke wasn't then.
Brooke was. Louise was chosen by the president.
Right. Okay. Well, maybe.
So yeah, there's certain like so when I can't find this. Yeah, so for the selection for like speaking on last year, yeah, it was all exec that was on the committee, Josh, Brooke, and Yoleon. I was the other person who was outside of the executive board, but that was it. And then the other people that were on the committee were chosen by either the president. I believe everybody else was chosen by the president or the GSC president.
Okay. So out of the 7 people or 8 that can be on the committee, there were only 3 or 4 that were from exec.
Yeah, so SGA, we only have a certain amount of seats that we actually fill on the committee, and it really depends. So for this year, I am not on the list because I'm a 2-year member. So Michael chose, of course, himself because he's the chair, and then he had one other selection, and he chose I believe it was Peyton was his other option.
Okay, I'll just take another look at I'll take another look at it, and then I'll send the question to DT.
Yeah, so there was 15 applications. There was 15 submissions. There are 17 submissions actually for committees for this year.
Okay.
Yeah, so the numbers are really low for our committee submissions that we did receive. Okay, go ahead, Grant.
If I need to pause because I know the president has something to say. His hand was raised. So I know
Okay, are there any objections to allowing Michael to speak? Okay, there's no objections. Go ahead, Michael. Your microphone is off. The microphone's off. I can hear you from my office, but the microphone is off. Well, it may. You can come over here if you need to ask your question. I'm not sure.
It said it was on. My bad. Okay, so what I was going to say about committees. So some of the committees that we chose exec to be on, we strategically placed them on there because some of those committees we need them to report back to us on those. They're just a little bit more important, so that's why we chose exec to be on some of those committees. If that answered your question, Jermaine.
It didn't answer my specific question about student service fee committee, but that's fine.
What was your question again about student service fees?
So I was just trying to figure out. So last year, and maybe I need to get the list from last year specifically, but I remember it being more diverse with the students that were on the committee. From what I remember, it wasn't that many people on exec last year, outside of maybe 2 or 3 of them. And Brooke wasn't on exec yet, but when she was offered that spot on the committee, she wasn't on exec yet. So I was just trying to figure out now that it's 5, I believe it's 5 people that are on exec for that committee, and 2 are just regular spots. If that makes sense.
So Jermaine, so like I was saying, I'm a 2-year member, so I just ended up being on exec, so I wasn't a part. So just to go ahead and answer the question of like if it's just full of exec members, I was a 2-year member, so I wasn't a selection. So since I was a 2-year member, I continue membership. From what's been submitted for the members, like it's Michael and then it's one other executive member. I'm not sure exactly who you're talking. Like there's not 5 staff members on the committee.
Okay, I'll look over the committee again just to make sure I have everything right, and then I'll just email you and Michael in detail.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, go ahead, Grant.
Okay, 2 things. One, I forget who's in charge, but where, just curious, where are we on the name tags? I know we sent that out. Is that what we're probably going to do during the Senator mingle event thing?
Yeah, so Danielle has had to wait because some people haven't submitted the form. So just to go ahead and reiterate, so if you haven't submitted your form, please go ahead and have it submitted. I believe it closes this Friday. So if you haven't submitted your form, please have it submitted by this Friday. So once Danielle gets like all submissions from every member, then she will be able to go ahead and make the purchase.
Okay, and then second, I'd like to recognize Devin to speak.
Okay, are there any objections? Okay, go ahead, Devin.
Thank you and good evening. I'm guessing Michael probably walked back to his office, but I was just wondering if I could get a clarification on his statement. I believe when we were discussing the SSF committee, he said that he needed the members to report to him, and so he needed those members to be exec because the committee was too important. And I was wondering if he could expound on what he means by too important.
Are there any objections to allowing Michael to speak? Okay, go ahead.
So I was not talking about student service fees committee. I was talking about some of the departmental committees that JT was referring to. Yeah, student service fees committee is just appointed by me and some different things. So does that answer the question?
Well, I'm pretty sure that the SSF committee is departmental.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I just wasn't referring to the student service fees committee.
Could you explain what some of the committees are that you believe are too important? But according to your own, what you were referring to, just so I'm on the same page.
Yes, let me pull up the list really quick. I was referring to like the Division of Student Affairs, like Student Advisory Committee, which is mainly exec. Where's it at? Like the President's Advisory Council, so that's like me. And then usually the Transportation Advisory Committee is also exec as well. Yeah, and then the Union Board of Directors, that one's usually exec. So it's just like a few of them that are more like centered around like what we need to hear. So like we'll just have like exec at those so that they can report back to us on those.
So I was just wondering, because these are committees that are supposed to provide student body input to the administration because they are departmental. Why couldn't there be, say, at least one outside voice on some of these committees? I understand the Presidential Advisory Committee. I understand that. But some of these other committees, say like the Union Board of Directors and the Transportation Committee, I'm sure that there's quite a few senators, especially for the transportation, or students, especially for the Transportation Committee, that would love to be involved in those conversations, not just with SGA, but also at the administrative level. So unless there's some policy against the student bodies being able to serve on that, then I understand. I'm just trying to understand why, we aren't trying to be a little bit more, trying to get the student body itself a little bit more involved in those higher level meetings and discussions.
There's all of the committees are not just exec. There are a lot of the committees that we appointed members of SGA to. There's probably about 20 or so committee members that are on exec or that are within the organization. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was referring to specifically the committees you were referring to. Because I do understand what you're referring to with other committees, so I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page.
Yeah, those are just up to the discretion of myself and Datavius. So we just appointed who we thought would be best for those.
Okay. And I guess this is just my final question. Was there any consideration of anyone outside of the executive branch when y'all were considering people for those committees?
There were.
And y'all ultimately felt that the people on the executive board were best for those committees?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But also,
I think that's all I needed
just
to
go ahead and answer the question. Exec staff has always been on those committees, and I've never seen any kind of issues like it being brought up before. I mean, looking at even the past one from this past year, those committees were filled by the entire exec staff as well. And there also was 17 submissions that we did receive, and we only denied 2. So it's just what it is.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, that's all I was gonna say. I was gonna say Grant had a question.
I'll let Devin go ahead and ask his question first.
I personally, and the reason why I was asking this is because I know that its central and core tenet of the SGA has historically been to try to get the student body directly involved in these discussions. And I know that that's something that the SGA has, to a certain level, failed at throughout the years. And so I'm just wondering if it was the direction of this administration to attempt to kind of bring those people into the fold, especially during a time in which, we're not meeting on campus. And so it's a lot more difficult to have those conversations. You can't really just set up a meeting and go to a meeting with, say, the director of transportation. I know as a senator, I had very limited ability to do that, much less being able to be on the transportation committee. And so I know that, there's students that are really passionate about these transportation concerns, but the only people that they're able to go through is SGA exec. And my only concern is not necessarily that it's SGA exec, but it's that it's this tight-knit group of people. And I just wanted to see if there's a way to get people more directly involved in those higher level discussions. So I was just curious to see if there was any consideration given to people outside of exec. I know y'all did receive submissions. My concern was when I heard that it was too important, my concern was that it was too important for regular students to be involved. And that was, of course, that's something that triggers alarm bells, because none of us, as a former member of exec, and no one currently in SGA, I mean, a former member of SGA, and no current member of SGA is more important than anyone else in the student body.
Yeah,
So,
correct.
and
But I
that's
think
why I wanted to
also
give.
what Michael was saying, like I said as well, these committees have always been exec, majority exec has been on these committees. And so with that, I don't think Michael was saying that students are not important and their voices are not important within those committees. I think also within the level of where we're at and how a lot of things are online, the retention within these committees and also the engagement, we could definitely assess as far as how our students are actually going to be engaged within these committees, within the meetings, because there have been some issues that we have had where committees, like there hasn't been not meetings, but they haven't been showing up for those meetings. So then that's why I raised that question of exactly, okay, so if we do have students on these important committees, are they actually going to show up for those committee meetings? And I mean, you can argue and say that, yes, they will, but at the same time, I don't think that's what Michael was saying. And the placement was made because that's what DT decided on the placement. Myself and Michael were not a part of the placement. And then as far as those people who were put on the committees, those are the people that are put on the committees.
And yeah, I'll go and wrap up because I don't want to take away time from the rest of the senators. I'm just going to go and conclude by saying, I'm glad that due consideration was given. And I just hope that we're not preemptively assuming that the student body isn't able to attend those meetings and isn't able to fulfill the duties of being on a committee. Because I think that preemption is a dangerous line of thought.
Yeah.
But I know Datavius, and I know they're a really good person, and I'm sure that they gave it due consideration. I just wanted to express some of my concerns as a constituent when I heard some of the things that were being said, and I appreciate you addressing them.
All right. Okay, so were there any other questions? Okay, so for officer reports, I did want to update you guys on COVID updates that we did have. So I was actually reading or actually watched the video that the president did email out on the updates. And so our numbers have been pretty low for this year. We haven't had any sort of issues within classrooms that have had positive cases. They've been outside of those classes. They've been more in contact with another person. And so within those close contact with other people, from what Dr. Witt has explained to us, those contacts have been less than 5 people, if that was the case. So our numbers are very low, but I did want to go ahead and give you guys an update since we didn't have Dr. Witt for that monthly update for today. And then moving forward through announcements, I did want to go ahead and remind you also, October 28th is when we will be having that workshop instead of our regular scheduled meeting. So I will send you guys the link for that. And then also for resolution, so for legislation. So exec is working on their initiatives right now that they will be implementing within our campus community. And so with that, some of these pieces of initiatives are actual legislations that can be are actual resolutions that can be implemented in campus. So the one thing that I want to go ahead and encourage you all to do is touch base with exec. But if you are interested in working with an executive staff member on legislation, please let me know so then I can go ahead and connect you with the staff member. And then next week, I will have the information on exactly what the initiatives are. So we just talked about this last night, actually, about we can engage senators and encourage them and use this as a way to boost legislation that we have within the organization, and then also utilize senators to go ahead and write legislation for these pieces of resolution. Yes, Grant.
So these initiatives that y'all have, are these like just thoughts at the moment, and then you would want your senators to come up with plans or actions, or do y'all actually have something ready and it's just like, hey, you want to be on board with this kind of thing?
So yeah, everything's already planned out. So so Michael and I, our initiative is Swipe Out Hunger. And so we've already had a meeting with Swipe Out Hunger. And then right now what we're planning is our meeting with the Dean of Students to go ahead and find our main hub for Swipe Out Hunger and exactly how we'll implement that. So all we need is to go ahead and write the legislation of exactly, you know, the whereas clauses and what is being resolved and what will be implemented on our campus. Okay. Were there any other announcements? Okay. All right. So I'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 6:27 p.m. So I hope you guys have a great evening. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Cameron.
Bye. Victoria. Wait, give me 1 second. I have to stop recording.
Okay.